Hi, everyone, and thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of Mom Mode. Today, I'm so excited to introduce the guest we have on, Lauren Saunders, who is a prenatal nutritionist. I am super excited. I love her approach and all the information that she shares on her Instagram. And if you don't know her, I'm going to let her introduce herself and tell us a little bit about herself.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here today. So, as she said, I'm Lauren Saunders and I am a prenatal nutritionist. I specifically am a registered dietitian. So, I went to school to eat, sleep, breathe, and talk about nutrition for every day for the rest of my life, it seems. Um, but I have started my own private practice where I specialize in fertility, pregnancy, and postpartum specifically. And it all started just getting myself ready for pregnancy and helping other women get ready for pregnancy as well. But a little bit more about me. I am an Army wife. My husband's in the Army, and we have two beautiful children. I have a little girl who just turned 2 and a little boy who is 6 months old. So still very much in the trenches of early motherhood and trying to balance all the things, as I think a lot of listeners can relate to.
Yeah, definitely. So you did the 2 under 2, basically.
Yes, yes.
Have
I
you loved
always
it?
assumed I would. Yeah, yes. I
Some
do love
days.
it, but I'm like, I think I might need a bigger gap next time. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, I'm there with you. My daughter's 18 months old, and I feel like when she was like 4 months old, I'm like, oh, I can do the 2 under 2. And now I'm like, I might need to wait a little bit. I think it's just based on all, babies are all different. So, depending on what your needs of your child are and I guess, what all you have going on, would depend. But yeah, I'm like, maybe 2. And then I'm like, well, maybe when she's 3. Um, but every mom's different and every child's different. So, I mean, that's amazing. And you have a girl and a boy. So you have one of each right now, which is so
Yes.
nice.
It's so fun. It's funny that you mentioned that because I feel like after my daughter, at like the 3-month mark, I was like, okay, I could have another one. Like I could get pregnant right now. Not really. I didn't want that, but I was like, man, this is great. And
Yeah.
now with my son, I'm like, I cannot even picture having another baby, like getting pregnant when I got pregnant with him. I'm like, that just seems so soon. And yeah, it's crazy. And not that he's been a harder baby because he really hasn't. It's just, I think the whole experience with having two kids that are high needs because that age is a very high need age group up until they're able to do everything themselves. It just can feel like a lot having more than one.
Definitely. And then you're also running a business. So, I mean, you have a lot going on. I'm like, we're not only just moms. Moms is, it's a full time, we never shut off. Now I get when my mom said like she never sleeps. I'm like, I kind of get it. Cause even though we sleep, I'm always like, well, if she wakes up, I need to be there. Um, but yeah, then you're running a business, you're being a wife, we got to show it for ourselves. There's so many different moving parts.
Yeah, there really is. And I feel like some days I feel like I'm thriving and I'm doing so well. And then other days I'm like, what did I sign myself up for? What am I doing?
I know. I think every mom can definitely feel that. Like I definitely do. And that's something that led me to starting the podcast. I've said that a few times with different guests that I've had on, but I'm like, the days that I feel like lost or like, am I doing this right? Or do moms feel this way is what made me be like, how do I connect with other moms? Are we all feeling this? Is just this what it is, part of what it is? And it truly is just part of what it is.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's part of what makes it so fun too, is that you're figuring out your rhythm, trying to find that balance, and you just learn as you go, and we're all learning as we go. And that's just what makes it fun. It makes it challenging, but it makes it fun.
Yeah, I would agree. Um, so when you were starting to prepare yourself, for pregnancy, obviously being a nutritionist, you had an idea of like what your body needed. Did you have any issues like struggling with fertility that made you kind of go into like the root cause approach? or like I guess the root approach to preparing your body to conceive, or how did that start?
Yeah. So I think a lot of us we have this 5-year plan of like this is what I'm going to do. And for me, I was going to get pregnant at 25 and have 4 kids before I was 30. And spoiler, that hasn't happened. My husband joined the army and he was supposed to be gone for 6 months. And so he started his stint and we were doing long distance. And at the 3 month mark, they said, just kidding, you got these new orders. And our 6 months turned into 18 months apart. And I was
Wow.
like, this ruins my 5-year plan. Like, I'm supposed to be pregnant in 3 months from now. And so during that time, I was actually working at the hospital as a dietitian, doing all of their like women's and children's unit stuff. And so I would get the moms that were in labor and delivery who were postpartum, freshly postpartum, and we would have some moms who were hospitalized for their pregnancy with either severe sickness or like rupture of membranes, just different complications that can happen. And so while I was working with those women, it's just so limited what you can do in a hospital setting when you have a list of 16 patients that you need to visit that day and you have to go to these 3 meetings and you have to chart. Like, that doesn't leave very much time to actually connect with each woman that I was seeing.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time, that's when I was like, okay, well, my husband's going to be gone. I'm just going to start a little side business because I had nothing else to do when I got home from work, and really tried to learn as much as I could about fertility nutrition and prenatal nutrition to help women on the side and have like more of an impact than I could working in a hospital setting, but also because I wanted my body to be so ready so that like the second he got home I could get pregnant and it wouldn't be delayed anymore, so to speak. And so that's what I did. I just learned as much as I could, and I got a certification in nutrition therapy for fertility and did a bunch of just different trainings and worked with a bunch of women helping them get pregnant, and realized like, wow, there's actually so much that we do have control over. Because I think for a lot of us, when we picture pregnancy or going through fertility treatments, things like that, it just feels like there's so much just out of our hands. And in reality, there's actually a lot that you can control that's going to impact your fertility and your hormones. And that's kind of where the last few years I've really shifted more into finding the root cause of any issues you might be going through with fertility treatments or health conditions, and taking the approach of working on your diet, working on your mineral foundation, your stress, some of those more holistic practices that can
Mm-hmm.
have a huge impact on your fertility. And I mean, it all started because I was like, I have all this time. I'm going to make the most of it so that when my husband gets home, I can get pregnant as soon as possible. And we did get pregnant really easily at that. But I definitely equate it to all of the work that I put in for a year before that.
Yeah, that's incredible. And that's really, it's such a unique path, like one door led you to what you're doing, led you to
Yeah.
wanting knowledge for yourself. And then you probably found such joy in helping other women get pregnant as well. I mean, I'd feel like that's such a blessing because it really is. I mean, it does seem like the more and more you look into it, so many women are having fertility issues or having complications. Like myself, I had preeclampsia and I'm like, I didn't even know. And then, um,
Yeah.
it was one of those things where unfortunately, when you don't look at the root cause, I feel like, my doctor's just like, oh, we'll put you on thyroid medicine, we'll put you on blood pressure medicine the next pregnancy. And I'm like, well, I don't want those things because I didn't feel like myself. And if I need them, that's one thing. But if I can take it into my own hands and nourish my body and give my body what it needs, because maybe there's a reason why that happened to my body, then that's the route that I want to take. So I was so excited to have you on because I'm actually in that journey myself. And I can definitely say that, it takes time, right? Because it's not an immediate, you have to like check different levels and then maybe what you suggest at first doesn't work 100% and you might need to do something else. But my energy levels are different. I almost feel like a different person. Like I feel like I'm more present than I ever was. by just altering a few things and taking like a couple supplements because I'm very sensitive, so I don't like to over supplement. Um,
Mhm.
so it's really incredible, and I love that approach, and I think more women seem to be wanting that approach as well.
Yeah. And I working so because for a while I did both my business and working at the hospital, and when I would get referrals from like the OB's office or the gynecologists, it's kind of frustrating because the first line of defense is let's take this medication, let's put you on these hormones, let's do birth control.
Mm-hmm.
And even though they would give them a dietitian consult, like I said, you don't get much time to really dig into, okay, what does your diet look like? What does your lifestyle look like? What are the habits that you're doing day in and day out? Because all of those things can have such a big impact on
Mm-hmm.
what the actual issue is. And when we're just putting medication on it, it's almost just like putting a band-aid on. It doesn't really treat what's going on. And when we take that medication off, are you going to have that solid foundation there that can support a healthy pregnancy, so that's where in my private practice I love that I can, dig in deep with clients and figure out, okay, what's really going on, let's build a plan around you and your lifestyle and just make it more fertility friendly. And it's amazing the results that women have, and like the energy shift and just so many
Mm-hmm.
other things that you don't expect to feel improvement on in your life when you're specifically trying to, work on getting pregnant, but you're having more energy, you're feeling better, your mental health is better, and you're not so puffy, like all of these different things that are they're all connected. So yeah, I love seeing this side of things and being able to see all of the amazing wins that my clients can have. Yeah.
Yeah, and I would say like it's beneficial even if you're not trying to get pregnant. I mean, obviously pregnancy is a huge thing because it takes such a toll on our bodies, but in general, like these are foundational things that we're learning about our bodies and ourselves that no matter what, even if we're done, in with the pregnancy phase and raising our kids, it's important to have that energy or to even teach them and just what I've learned. It's just really incredible. Now, when you say what, like if a client comes to you, maybe it depends on like what they're experiencing, and what they're coming to you for, but what can someone expect like when they reach out to you? Are there certain blood tests? Are there, because I've noticed there's like a hair analysis, there's different types of tests. So can you walk us through like what those tests are and what they, what's beneficial about them for somebody to do?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So, as soon as a new client signs up with me, I send them a hair testing kit. And so, this is the HTMA hair test. It stands for hair tissue mineral analysis. And you take just like one little heaped teaspoon of hair at the root, so in the very back of your head. And we send it to a lab and it analyzes for 35 plus different minerals as well as heavy metals. And it gives us the mineral levels as well as kind of their ratios with each other, which is really important when looking at some hormone health, and heavy metals. And with that, we can see if there are certain minerals that are low or if certain ratios are imbalanced or if you're too high on one thing that can be impacting hormone signaling that might not be picked up on a blood test. Um, for example, we actually see a lot of thyroid issues on hair mineral tests, even though, TSH might look normal on a blood lab. But the hair test kind of gives us an average of the last 3 months of your diet, your lifestyle, kind of what your body's been going through for 3 months. And so it gives us a bigger picture, what to actually look at and what to actually focus on. And it also really shows us where stress is showing up in your body and where it's can be impacting your fertility, because stress is a huge depleter of our mineral status. So that's one of the first things I will send to my clients is to get their hair tested, and that takes about a month to get those results back. So in the meantime, that first month, that's where we're diving into what does their diet look like? What does their lifestyle look like, their day in, day out? And what foods do we need to add to make it more fertility friendly? I don't love focusing on what you need to cut out because I don't find it super helpful, but like what can we add to your diet to make it more fertility friendly to build that strong foundation? And then when we get your mineral test results back, where do we need to dig in deeper? Where do we need to correct some of those? Last headphone. Where do we need to correct some of those imbalances? So really, I take 4 to 6 months with each of my clients, and we dive into their diet, we dive into their lifestyle, their sleep, their stress, their minerals, and we just build a plan. And we're having touch points every 2 weeks at least to make sure that they're still on the right track. And when questions come up, because they will, where can we go from there? So we start with those minerals. That honestly is like my favorite piece right now, is to go through their mineral test because it tells us so much about what's happening on the inside.
Wow. So just from your hair strands, that is like, to me, that's wild. I mean, I've never done a hair analysis. We ran like a lot of blood tests for me, several different ones. And mine is a thyroid issue. I have like those TPO antibodies. Um,
Mhm.
and so that's, definitely, and then I have Hashimoto's. So when you look into like the preeclampsia, you're like, oh, this makes sense. Um, so after the hair analysis comes back and you're going through those minerals, is a lot of what you do like just nutrition, or do you do the nutrition plus suggesting like different supplements depending on like where their minerals, may be at?
Yeah, both for sure. So I like to take a food first approach, but in some cases, and what I see a lot of is like really depleted sodium and potassium, for example, where supplementing with it for a little bit can really help get those levels up because our soil that we grow our fruits and vegetables in it's not as rich as it used to be in minerals. And so really it's very easy to be depleted. And like I said, stress depletes us as well. So supplements, yes, can help, but a lot of what my coaching has kind of evolved into is balancing your diet and your minerals with your stress response and regulating your nervous system to calm yourself down. Because when we're in this highly stressed state, we're just depleting our minerals even more, and that's wreaking havoc on our hormones. And so finding ways that we can bring just a little bit more of that calmness into your day. And I mean, if you're trying to get pregnant, that's obviously a stressful time. And so finding ways to balance that out and find a little bit of peace is going to help so much with conserving your mineral status, but also just supporting your hormone balance and everything moving forward.
Yeah, I never realized how important it is to get into that. Is it the parasympathetic nervous system?
Mm-hmm.
Because so many of us live in that fight or flight. And,
Yes.
it's easy to happen, even, whether you're trying to get pregnant or you have a newborn or you have a toddler running around, and then just everything else we have going on in life.
Yep.
Often find myself like, wow, I can feel that I'm in fight or flight. And I just need to take 5 minutes and deep breathe or put on a meditation. Um, is there certain like go-tos that you love to suggest for your clients to get into that parasympathetic nervous system?
So breathing for sure is one of them. Um, when you're in that fight or flight mode, it's almost like you have too much energy in your body. And that's where you said, like, you can literally feel it and you almost just like feel it in your chest. You're kind of anxious, you're wound up. So finding ways to expel that energy is actually going to help. And so one of my favorite things is to go on a walk. And if I can, no headphones, no nothing, and just let your mind be. Just let it be, let it do its thing, let it breathe a little bit without having
Yeah.
so much input. That can be huge for kind of getting you out of that sympathetic state. And that's also where exercise can help, or any sort of movement can help get that energy out, or doing a lot of deep breathing with like a really heavy exhale to just like exhale that energy out can help. I run a 3-day challenge over Zoom every month or every couple of months, the Fuel Your Fertility Challenge. And I actually have one day denoted specifically to stress and nervous system regulation, because it is such a big thing. And I go over a bunch of different tactics there too. It's not it's not bad to like be in a sympathetic state. In fact, we need it, because if your house is on fire, you should be feeling fight or flight. You should, get out of there when there's other situations.
Mm-hmm.
But it's getting stuck there. It's your child throwing a tantrum and you don't know how to help them, and you yourself are getting worked up. Like that's what we want to try to get out of. So finding that balance between like the sympathetic and parasympathetic is major, and just being able to move through it.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's, I love that you said going on a walk and just letting your mind be. And it makes sense. Like when my daughter is, I can tell when she's overwhelmed, if the TV's on, if people are talking in the background, like sometimes she's really overwhelmed. And then if I turn the TV off and it's quiet, you can see them calm down. So it's the same for us. Um, just having a moment of peace.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know I've talked to a few clients and they're like, I can't go on a walk in silence. Are you kidding me? But even if it's like your morning commute, like just don't turn the radio on for 5 minutes and just,
Mm-hmm.
just sit in the stillness and kind of let your mind be. And when I started doing this, I actually found that at night I fell asleep so much easier, because normally you go to lay down, and if that's the first time your brain has been able to just be itself all day long, you might have a ton of things running through your head. But if you have that
Mm-hmm.
intentional time earlier in the day, you're going to sleep so much better, because that doesn't feel like your brain has to catch up then.
Yeah, absolutely. That makes sense. Um, so you treat women who are trying to conceive, and then um do you ever have clients that come to you that they have conceived and then they want to check their levels postpartum?
Yes. And so I have some who are pregnant, and we actually check their levels in pregnancy as well.
Okay.
So I do a little bit of all of it. So if you are pregnant and certain things are low, your pregnancy is going to be so much smoother if we can work to replenish those things. And then if you're postpartum, almost everyone postpartum is going to be low in a lot of things, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
But knowing exactly what to focus on and what to replenish can help your recovery so much. In fact, today I just got off of a call with one of my postpartum clients, and this was her second baby. And she had said how it has been such a night and day difference between her first postpartum experience and this one, because mentally she's feeling so much better. Physically, she's feeling so much better, and she has known exactly what she needed to prioritize. And it's
Mm.
having that huge benefit on her total body health, knowing, okay, we're going to focus on potassium, we're going to focus on magnesium, um, we're going to focus on stress, like all of these things, having answers to it, I think brings just a lot of peace to women who are in these stages.
Yeah, I mean that makes total sense. I mean, when I think about when I was pregnant going to my OB, like they're not testing my potassium levels or any of my minerals. And I always say I'm kind of like a mix of both. Obviously like love my doctor, love that I go to him, I trust him, but I also did tell him, I'm like, hey, I'm going to try to figure out what was going on with my body that caused this. And he respected that. I know some doctors they don't love that like root cause, or root approach. And I don't know why. But they don't. They're just like, no, just take the medicine, but then there are doctors out there that are like, okay, I respect it, and that's what it is. And in fact, when I told my doctor, I was like, hey, like, I've been seeing this natural doctor, and I said, I have TPO antibodies. And he's like, really? And I'm thinking, like, yeah, and not that that would have helped me because I was already pregnant when, and like I already had that thyroid stuff going on. But had I known that previously to trying to get pregnant, I might have avoided certain things. And yeah, I mean, I even just hearing you say like checking someone's minerals and their nutrition during pregnancy, that is a huge thing.
Yeah.
Nausea, um, drained energy, like it can all be solved. And, it's so important, I feel like, to have someone who is professional in that space, because there's so many things that we have to stay away from when we're pregnant. I would Google so many things like, can I eat this? Can I, and it would have been much easier to have somebody,
Yes.
help guide me instead of me just Googling or avoiding because I don't know.
I um, I want to go back to where you said like some doctors are really open to that root cause
Mm-hmm.
approach and some are just not. And this is something I've been thinking a lot about recently. I'm like, why is it like why are more fertility clinics, for example, not doing this stuff? And in my mind, like I think it's because taking the root cause approach, it takes a lot of time, and most traditional doctors' offices, like you're in and out in 30 minutes max, and half of that was like sitting in the waiting room, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, it's not their fault. They just don't have time to sit with you for an hour to go through your diet or to go through your lifestyle and your stress history and things like that. So I think that's part of why it's kind of polarizing with traditional medicine versus more holistic, like root cause. I
Mm-hmm.
think it comes down to a traditional healthcare system. There's just not time built into it where they can go through all of these things. And it's not bad, it's not good one way or another. I love my OB as well, and I mean, I ended up with C sections, and that's how it's gone. But I think having that mix of both in your corner is only going to give you more answers and more support.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. And that's the other thing. Like, it isn't their fault. They're not taught that in traditional medicine. They aren't even taught, I don't know that they're even taught like the nutritional side. That's just not their approach. And there's nothing, like you said, there's nothing wrong with that. It's just, why not have a mix of both? And that's exactly where I'm at. I think it's so important. And since it's funny, I actually went to my doctor at my year check, when my daughter turned a year old. And I was like, okay, like we're thinking about, you know, when to start. And he was like, okay, like looked back at everything. He's like, I would want to put you on thyroid medicine right away, when you are actively trying. And then we'd probably do baby aspirin and then blood pressure meds. And I immediately, like, my body 100% went into fight or flight mode. Like, I was like, so anxious. I was scared because I'm like, I don't want to feel, and my hope is that, if I have to experience what I experienced again, I would. But if I could avoid that and bring my pregnancy to full term, because my daughter was born at 37 weeks, I'm going to do that. And so that is actually what made me, I talked to my husband and I'm like, I just feel like I need to change my body and get my body in a healthier state. And I'm not going to know that unless I go to, it's called Well Rooted. It's actually pretty well known. They have a good following online. And, you know, I would say I like your approach to the nutrition side of things because we can get all of our nourishment through food. We don't need to be taking 10 supplements. We can get it from our food. And so I really like that you have that approach. Um, but yeah, that's what kind of made me like put the stop sign up and be like, okay, I need to look inward of what's going on and then we'll get there. Um,
Yeah. Okay, I want to ask you, have you heard about beets or beet juice for like preeclampsia, hypertension, and pregnancy?
Interesting enough, I did hear that beets help and I actually love beets. Like some people are so grossed out because they're so
Earthy.
what earthy tasting. But I haven't done it lately, but I was on this kick where I was juicing beets. We were going to like the farmer's market and I was juicing beets, carrots, ginger, and just drinking that beet juice. Um, is that like, so there's those studies around
There,
that.
there's a lot of like really cool research actually on beets and like beetroot powder or beetroot juice. Um, I think it's like, is it 3.5 grams? I would have to double check. But as like a therapeutic dose instead of aspirin for blood pressure in pregnancy, like the outcomes are amazing. I my my sister has had some blood pressure issues in her pregnancy. I tried so hard to get her on beets and she wouldn't do it. But the outcome, I've seen some amazing things. And I have a client right now who has had preeclampsia in a previous pregnancy. She's pregnant again, and we're trying to like minimize the risk again, and we're getting her on the beet supplements. And it's just like capsulated beetroot powder. Or if you're
Yeah.
going to drink it, you can drink beetroot juice if you can handle it, or if you can eat it daily, that's the other option too. But there's some awesome research, so I would say like check that out because that
Oh,
could be
that's
helpful.
awesome. Thank you for that tip. Huh. I'm going to have to keep following that. Yeah. I think I was like looking up, like, because my blood pressure's been pretty good now, but after pregnancy, obviously, like I teeter tottered because more so like anxiety, I was making my blood pressure go up. And so I
Yeah,
was looking up like what foods help, and beets came up. And so I'm like, oh, I got a beet juice because I can drink the beets. I've never cooked beets before, but I can definitely juice beets and drink the beet juice. That doesn't bother me at all. But
yeah,
that's interesting to know.
yeah.
Um, yeah, I love that. So did that mom come to you because she had preeclampsia, her like first or second pregnancy?
Yep, for her first pregnancy. And she was newly pregnant again and was like, I don't want to go through what she went through. She also delivered early. And I think her baby was in the NICU initially. And so she's like, anything that I can do to minimize that risk again. So that's what we're working on right now.
Yeah. No, it's so important. And I just feel like, especially now starting the mom mode and like having this Instagram of all these mom accounts, like it's way more common than it's like becoming more common preeclampsia. And obviously there's so many other things, like, issues. But do you think that now you said you had a C-section? Um, this is kind of a funny question, but do you think there's a way to where we can guide our bodies nutritionally to prep for labor?
Yes, yes. I also think sometimes your body just can't do it, in my
No.
case at least. Um, yeah. And I could share my whole C-section story if you want to hear
Yeah.
because
I mean, if you'd
it,
like
it
to
was
share it.
unplanned. Yeah, I will. So I was like with my daughter, I was going to have a natural birth. I didn't want an epidural, no pain meds, the whole shebang. And in my labor preparation and whatnot, I even like I picture in my mind, okay, this and this would have to happen in order for me to have an epidural, or in order for this or this. I never ever pictured what would have to happen in order for me to have a C-section. I didn't even think about it, which is funny because two of my sisters had had a C-section like the year prior, but like that wasn't going to happen to me. Um, and so, and I did all the things, and the eating dates and the drinking the tea, the red raspberry leaf tea. There's not a ton of research that actually shows it's going to help with labor. But the healthier you are, and the better your diet is overall, that's supporting your total body health, in theory should support having a smoother birth. And I was doing all the things. So when it came down to it, I was in labor for 24 hours before we did a C-section. And I started off unmedicated, all the things, and it got intense. And I had told my husband before, I need to ask for an epidural 3 times before you let me have one. And he he did it, and I was so mad the first time when I was like, I need an epidural. And he was like, nope, one more contraction, you can do it. Like, you can do it. And I was so mad at him at the time, but so grateful that he stuck to what I told him to do. But it was a classic like failure to progress, which I think is like triggering to a lot of people in the birth community. But um, I sat at 6 centimeters for, I think it was like 17 hours.
Oh my gosh.
And I felt like I was in transition, and I was like, I'm going to have them check me one more time. And if I haven't progressed, then I need to have an epidural. And they checked and they were like, you're still at 6 centimeters. So I got an epidural, and my contractions pretty much stopped. And I was on Pitocin and nothing really. And my daughter was low enough that they could feel her. Her head was starting to cone. And this was now hours after getting the epidural. And they were like, okay, her head is coning. We probably need to talk about options. And at that point, I was like, okay, we just need to do a C section. And it's funny because I had that thought in my mind probably like 12 hours into labor that it was going to end in a C section, but I didn't say that because at that
Mm-hmm.
time, like I still didn't have the epidural and I was fine at that time. But I had that thought and I was like, no, I'm just being scared. But
Mm-hmm.
um, ended up with the C-section and was very, very sad about it for probably that first month. And for me, it felt like a traumatic birth, even though it wasn't emergent when the time happened. It was, I decided we're going to do it. She's not coming out. And so it wasn't a huge rush to get back there, but it still was not planned. And yeah, for like the first month, it just felt like a lot. And so going in for my second pregnancy, my whole plan was to have a VBAC the entire time. But I just always kind of felt unsettled about it, and I never really felt peace with having a VBAC. And I just remembered praying, like, I just want to know how this baby is supposed to be here. Yeah, I don't know why I'm crying because I've told this story before, and now it's
No,
six
it's
months later.
okay.
um, anyway, literally the week before my due date, um, I just was talking to my husband, and I was like, I think we just need a, I think he's going to be a C-section too. And at that point, like, I had not progressed at all. Like, I wasn't dilating, like, nothing was happening, and I was having a ton of pubic pain. Um, but still, I have no indication that I needed to have a C-section at that point. I told my husband, I think we need to do it. And so at like my 39-week appointment, I asked my doctor, I'm like, so if I decided to have a C-section, like when could you schedule me? And she was like, great, like let's do it Saturday. And I immediately just like felt a huge weight lift off of me. Um, so I knew that like that was the right decision and that he was supposed to be a C-section. And we went in that morning, and it was honestly the most peaceful experience having him. And the recovery was also so much better because I didn't labor for 24 hours before. And
Oh,
that
that
was one of the
sounds
big
so
things.
nice.
Yeah,
You're making me
that was
emotional
one of
because
the
I had a C-section
like,
and I've
yeah,
thought the same thing. I didn't feel it for like a month. I felt it for like that first day. And I feel it when like some of my friends tell me their stories of like vaginal birth. I'm like,
yeah,
oh, wow, like I wish I could have experienced that. But on the flip side, it could have been because my daughter, I was 37 weeks that my body wasn't progressing, but my mom had 3 C-sections because she failed to dilate. Well, I was about 29 hours in, 32 hours in, laying there. They gave me
yeah,
Cytotec, Cervidil, Pitocin. My
all the
doctor
things.
comes in. He's like, you know what? I'm going to try to break your water. He's like, so why don't you get the epidural? Were you planning on getting an epidural? I'm like, yes. He's like, get an epidural because sometimes it can be a little painful. And I get the epidural. He comes in like a few hours later and he's like, and I literally say this actually in my first episode ever of Mom Mode. I quote, your cervix is like concrete. He's like, you're not even at a 1. And I had all this medication.
My
And then I was
gosh,
like, well, when would we consider a C-section? And then, he talked me through like it is a harder recovery. We may not be able to do a VBAC. Your future pregnancies may be C-section. Very, walking me through it all. But I was like, I'm just ready to meet my daughter. I've been laying here. I'm
yeah,
numb. I don't feel good with all this medication. And it was great. but I not moving forward, and like some moms may hate me for saying this, but I'm like, my next baby will be a C-section baby. Like, I am not going to put myself through that of not knowing if I'm going to dilate again.
Yeah.
And, you know, so it makes me, you brought me to tears when you said it was so peaceful because you weren't in that waiting period of 24 hours before having a C-section with all that medication in you, because it does affect how our bodies feel. Um, so that's beautiful. And I am like, thank God for C-sections, because I don't know if I would be here. So many women
Yeah.
wouldn't be if our babies, or our babies at least wouldn't be here. So
Yeah.
it's such a beautiful thing. Um, and yeah, that's incredible. So with your daughter, were you full term when you?
Yeah. I was 40 and I went in on my due date, 40 weeks. And it was so funny. I was due February 28th, and I
Yeah,
thought I was going to have a February baby. And like, it was going to be my little Valentine's girl. And it was like 6 p.m. that night. And my doctor was like, okay, like you're at a six already, maybe about an hour per centimeter. So like it could be around midnight. And I was like, she's coming before midnight. But also, that's what I was like, she's going to be a C-section. And
you
sure enough,
felt
like
it.
I had her that next morning. And it was so funny because my entire pregnancy, I'm like, she's going to be a February baby. Like, I'm not going over term, which is funny because most first time moms with like no complications, they go beyond their due date. Many first time moms do. So it was just funny to think that. But yeah, so once once I finally decided, like, yeah, let's just do the C-section, I was so glad that I did it because, like you said, I knew she wasn't gonna come out vaginally. Her head was already coning, and I was like, let's just get her out. And thankfully, it wasn't emergent. It wasn't that her life was in risk or my life was at risk. Um, but yeah, the recovery was so hard, and yours probably was too, after being in labor for hours and hours and hours, and then
Oh
having
yeah.
a major abdominal surgery to recover while taking care of a baby. So the second time around, I was like, wow, I feel amazing. 6 hours after the surgery, when I was up and walking, I'm like, I feel so much better than I did that first time.
Oh, I love hearing that. I'm so happy you shared that. I mean, for me, for other moms that are going to be listening to this, like, yeah, I mean, I definitely did not expect what I felt with my C-section. I also felt like I was in a way babying myself though, because I didn't know, and then you're like, well, I don't want to, I took it serious. The whole like only go up the stairs once a day. Like I honored that because I'm like, I don't want to rip anything. But it's incredible how our bodies bounce back. And bringing it back to the nutritional side of things, I'm sure when you're nourishing your body properly, I mean, it could be even faster.
Yeah, yeah, no, absolutely. It
And
was
then
kind of
with
funny. So after I
breastfeeding,
had my, yes, like recovering, repairing your body from surgery and supporting like a healthy milk supply, you need a lot. You really do. And um, this takes me back. So 2 weeks after I had my daughter, I actually had signed up for this postpartum. It was like a virtual summit that, gosh, I don't even remember her name, that a psychologist was putting on, and had different professionals from different fields talking about a specific thing regarding postpartum health. And that was probably the best thing I could have done because I was feeling so bad that I had ended up with a C-section, and it was more so not pressure from everybody else, but just pressure I put on myself, I think. And
mm-hmm.
um, then you're postpartum, and I would be in bed with a baby until 11 a.m., and I hadn't ate anything since dinner the night before, which goes against everything that I teach. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and so doing that virtual summit actually kind of like was a little bit of a wake up call postpartum of there's so much that you can be doing for your body that's going to support healing mentally, but also physically, nutrition wise. And I started researching more about how nutrition is impacting our mental health in postpartum, and certain foods that you can be eating to support a better mood and to, support or move you through some of the baby blues or postpartum anxiety and depression. And so what I learned there kind of like started a framework and like the bare bones of the postpartum nutrition course that I have now that I take my postpartum clients through. And a lot of it really is focused on healing your body and healing your mind because there's a lot going on. Whether you had a good birth story or a not so great birth story or experience, like you're just feeling so much in that time. And so a lot of nutrition to support that is going to help.
Oh, absolutely. And just the lack of sleep we're getting. I mean, I know like they call it hangry for a reason. Like if you're
Yeah.
not eating and then your body's just depleted, then add a newborn, then add the hormonal fluctuations. I mean, that's like a
Hmm.
disaster. Um, and so yeah, just when you do eat, I mean, obviously, like you said, you need to eat first. I mean, I think all of us moms though can admit that there's times when we've had these large gaps because we're just feeding our
Oh,
baby.
yeah.
But knowing what to eat is so important. And I mean, if you said that it would help my mental health, I'll do anything because it's definitely a struggle when you first bring home a baby,
Yeah.
especially when you're a new mom, like a first time mom. I mean, I don't know how it is when you bring a second, but
Yes.
at least you've had like a walk around the park, like you've done it. You kind of know. Um, that first time home with a newborn is definitely, it was a struggle for me.
Yeah, I would agree there. I feel like the experience with baby number two, it's been a night and day difference. I think in part because I had a planned C-section and I was just feeling better about birth overall, that made a huge impact. But also having gone through it before and knowing what to expect and knowing, okay, I'm feeling crazy right now, and it's literally because my hormones are trying to regulate. It's not
Hmm.
because I am crazy, it's because of something that is normal is happening. And I think being able to recognize that the second time around has helped me so much just in my mindset in those early weeks of being like, honey, I'm sorry I'm snapping at you. I kind of can't control it, but just know I don't want to and I don't mean to. It's just things are feeling weird. And I feel
Yeah.
like the first time around, I didn't recognize it as much. I just felt crazy and ornery all the time, and it just is what it is. Um,
Hmm.
but the second time around, I'm like, okay, I can pinpoint this is my hormones. I've done this before. I'm not gonna feel like this forever. So it just made it so much less big in my mind.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And like the postpartum, um, do you help moms like breastfeeding moms? So just checking what they might be depleted in and helping, if a mom's in like a dip or wants to breastfeed, I mean, I guess do you recommend that if a breastfeeding mom, I mean, I guess what I'm trying to ask is when should a mom see you? But really there's all these different stages of when a mom can come and see you because it's important regardless. But
I
if a
would
mom is
say,
experiencing breastfeeding, like a dip in breastfeeding, I mean, do you work with moms directly that are just trying to get their supply up?
yeah. So I mean, it's all encompassing where we would focus on like your total postpartum health, and milk
Yeah.
supply would be one area for sure. And a lot of times, like when we balance out, I'll just say like when we balance out your plate, when you're getting enough protein, when you're getting enough complex carbs, and you're getting enough of the antioxidants, the minerals in your fruits and vegetables, it's going to support your brain. It's also going to support your milk supply. And yeah, I would say like if someone maybe had a rough first postpartum experience and they weren't able to breastfeed as long as they wanted to, or it was hard getting it off the bat, um, it would be great to sign up either right before you have a baby or shortly after you have a baby because the first month really is pretty critical with establishing your milk supply. And so getting that support during that time or preparing for that time can make a huge, huge difference in your outcome.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, and do you primarily work with women virtually or do you see people like in person if they're located where you're located?
Mostly all virtual. I've done a few in person if they are local, but for the most part, it's been virtual and over video call. Yeah.
That's awesome. So how long have you been then? I guess did you start? Well, I guess you said a year before your daughter was born. So you've had your own business for like almost what, 3, 4 years now.
Since 2021, the end of 2021, so going on 4 years. Yeah.
Wow. Well, I like I said, I love your approach to everything. Um, I guess for advice for moms, what advice would you give a first time mom who's really going through like the newborn phase right now and just the nourishment, the mental health? Like, what would your advice be for that mom?
Oh, I I would say something is better than nothing because I feel like a lot of times we put too much pressure on ourselves. And maybe listening, you're like, oh, this is overwhelming. There's so much I should be doing, so much I should be focusing on, and it makes it hard to focus on anything. So if you are in those trenches right now, I would say pick one small thing that you can do today that's going to help with your nutrition. So maybe it's making yourself a nourishing breakfast, having a hot breakfast, um, getting a vegetable side on your lunch or something like that, having a nourishing smoothie in the afternoon. Just start with one small thing to start moving you forward. It doesn't have to be, a big grand thing that's going to have this huge impact on your health, but making those small little changes day in and day out, that is what's going to have a big impact on your health overall. And they'll all build, and you're not going to be here forever. That's another thing that I think I needed to hear the first time around. You're not going to feel this way forever. You're not going to be up all night long again forever. And I think for me, if I picture like my babies won't be this small ever again, it always is just like, oh, right in the heart. And it just makes me like cherish it even more. And it's okay if it's hard. It's okay if it's hard. It's not going to feel hard forever.
Yeah. No, I love that so much. And it's so true. Yeah, I think after your first, you realize you're like, oh, wow, I slept after, and every baby's different. So maybe your first baby, it took forever for them to sleep through the night, or maybe they were amazing sleepers. But, by two, I mean, when you really look at it, you're like a year and a half, 2 years. I mean, they become so independent. Um,
Yeah.
it's wild. And they only get more independent. And so, yeah, you realize you're like, oh my gosh, this doesn't last forever. And then you almost miss that little baby that you were taking care of in those moments, no matter how hard it was.
Yeah. It's so true. I remember with my son, I forgot how long it takes them to breastfeed when they're a brand spanking new newborn. Um, because when you have like an older baby, they're on the breast maybe 10 minutes and they're done and they can go play. And you have a newborn and you're like back at it. It's taking an hour to feed and to burp, and then you do it all over again and again. Um,
Yep.
and now my baby's 6 months old, and the other night I was just thinking like, oh, are you done already? You're done? Like we can still snuggle. Like we can still do it. It's okay. And he was just done. And I'm like, oh, it really goes so fast. And you might be begrudging it in the moment of like, why is it taking an hour to feed? But I'd say just try to cherish those little moments. It's okay if you can't. It's okay if it doesn't feel like it in the moment. But you will miss it.
Yeah, I agree. I've thought about like journaling almost because, when you journal, I feel like writing it out, I could be a little more graceful. If I'm having like a really hard struggle, I might write down that struggle, but then when you're writing and you're able to calm yourself, then you get into that grateful state. And so
Yeah.
journaling is so cool because you can look back and be like, wow, I went through it, but I was also so grateful. And I don't know, you just remember the time, and your children eventually can read through that as well.
Oh, I love that. I recently started getting back into journaling, and I wish I would have more with my first baby because I just did it. And now like my son's rolling consecutively.
Oh
And
my
I'm
goodness.
like, when did my daughter do that? I truly have no idea when she even started doing that. And not to compare the two of them, but just to be like, wow, they grow so fast, and now I don't even remember when she was hitting these milestones. So I'm like, I need to write it all down. And
I
if you're
know.
listening to this and it's your first baby, write it all down. You wish that you would have.
I know. It's so true. I know. I feel like, I mean, I didn't journal early on with my daughter, but I'm like, well, at least we have photos. I'll look back at photos and I'll be like, when did she start
Yes.
rolling over? When was she on her belly? Like, I really, that's kind of how my timestamps are like in that.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but so do you have a website, or where can moms, if they're interested in contacting you and finding more information out, where's the best place for moms to go?
So the best place would be my Instagram at prenatal.rdn. And then I do have a website. It's prenatalrdn.com. And I just started a YouTube channel for more long form content, and that's prenatal RDN, no dot in the YouTube. But
Oh, that's
if you have
awesome.
questions, yes. And you can message me on Instagram. That's where I'm most active. So yeah.
Well, I'll attach, obviously I'll be tagging you, and like your Instagram, and then I'll add your website as well. But that's exciting. Is the YouTube new?
Yes. I've had some of my Instagram videos have just automatically uploaded it as shorts, but I've just started doing more of the long form content. This is
Oh, I love
like
that.
literally this month. So I'm setting a goal to be consistent with it. So there's just with Instagram, like short form stuff, you just can't get into the nuance and the nitty gritty details. So having a platform where I can do like a little bit more. Maybe one day I'll have a podcast. But yeah, it's been fun, a fun little transition.
Yeah, no, I love it. And honestly, like another reason why I started the podcast, I'm like, we see so many little clips of you and all these guests that I've had on are like just women. And I'm like, but you want to know more. You want to dive deeper in. Like when you post a reel, it's like, well, I want to know more about that. And so I love that you're doing the YouTube. And yeah, definitely podcasts are so fun. I highly recommend it. So um but I appreciate you coming on the mom mode. I can't wait to share this with all the other moms. And thank you so much for sharing, your C-section and your birth stories. That was really special.
Thank you, Nicole. It's been so fun to chat with you today.
Well, everybody go follow Lauren Saunders, our prenatal nutritionist, and go for all your needs for whether you are trying to conceive and whether you don't even know if you're going to have issues. It's so important to get your minerals and everything checked, for you to just be successful in, your pregnancy or just your day to day.
Yes, thanks, Nicole.
Yes. Thank you. Talk soon.